You're listening to Seahawks Stories, taking you behind the scenes with your favorite Seahawks.
Setbacks behind Zorn, who's back to pass. Has time, looks for the left sideline, throws a bomb down there. He's got a man in front. He makes the grab. It's Raible at the 30, down to the 20. They'll never get him. He scores. Touchdown, Seahawks.
Powered by Seahawks.com.
And Zorn laid it in perfectly to Raible, who goes in to score on an 80-yard pass and run play.
Now, here's your host, the voice of the Seahawks, Steve Raible, and Seahawks legend Jim Zorn.
Oh, Z, I know you get tired of hearing that. I know you'd rather have somebody else catching the football. Well, today we do. By the way, it's our first time back here on Seahawks Stories this season, so good to be back with you again.
It's great to see you, Steve, and you look wonderful.
Thank
and
you.
Now everybody knows you look wonderful.
Well, that's right. This is our first time with the actual video thing going here. Now, I did a lot of video. I was on camera a lot. And
I can tell.
Yes, and a lot of people thought, "Wow, what a waste of a good camera." But still, that was the case. But now we have it here. We're on video, and I got to look up at this monitor. Oh, he's up there with us now. It's our turn to get a chance to say hi to one of our favorite people from going back to 1976. Sam McCullum was one of my heroes on this football team. Not only because he was my teammate, but because he taught me a lot about how to be a professional and how to be a football player. And I know you appreciated him because he caught darn near everything that got anywhere close to him, and usually for big plays, big gains, touchdowns.
When Jerry Rome had a read, he would say, "Okay, I want you to read the free safety, and if the free safety hangs, throw the deep post." And it was to Sam on the deep post. And we did that often,
yeah.
Even with play action. And I think Sam also was on the backside comeback. We completed a lot of comebacks, as I remember,
yeah.
because he was on the single receiver side.
Well, let's welcome him in. Sam McCullum, 1976 with the Seahawks through 82, and boy, it's great to have you with us, Sam. It's great to see you as always.
Great, guys. It's good to be here. Finally got the opportunity to sync up our time, so I'm glad it could work out for all of us. So it's good to see you guys.
Yeah, it is. Hey, Sam, how did you – I cannot remember this, and I think everybody would like to hear this. I would. How did you get to the Seahawks? Because I can't remember what the situation was coming here for you.
Well, the expansion draft, which happened in the spring of '76, I was with the Vikings at the time, and the head coach happens to be a guy named Jack Patera, and I was with him for 2 years in Minnesota. So when it came time for the expansion draft, I was one of the names that Minnesota put up for the expansion because I'd had a really tough 1975 season in Minnesota. I hurt my knee and hurt my hand, and I missed half the season with injuries. And so when it came time for the expansion, they unprotected me. And Jack Patera was one of the guys that I knew from being on the field with him for 2 years. And so he brought me to Seattle with the expansion draft with the hopes that I'd bring the culture from Minnesota with me as one of the guys that experienced it all those years in Minnesota with Bud Grant. So it worked out well.
Sam, was it frustrating for you to go from Minnesota coming all the way to Seattle, or was that like a lift for you? How did you feel about all that?
Well, I felt great about it, Jim, because it was one of the things that I lived, not people knew, I lived for 3 years in Ferndale, Washington. My dad was in the military, but Peach Charge State Park was a military installation back in those days. So I spent my 5th, 6th, and 7th grade years in Ferndale. So when I had a chance to come back here with the expansion, I was pretty excited because I remember having such great memories of growing up in northwestern Washington, and I remember the weather. And plus, in Minnesota, we were still practicing outside and playing outside, and I hated the fact that in December and January we're on that frozen tundra outside when it's below zero out there for an hour and a half practicing, and I just never could get warm. So I was happy to come to Seattle, and I knew they had a dome, so I was very happy for that change and a new opportunity because I knew in Minnesota there was a gentleman named John Gilliam, another gentleman named Jim Lash that had been very well, entrenched in the roles there, and I was a backup to them for those years. So it gave me a chance for a new beginning in Seattle. So I was quite happy to come out.
You had eventually Ahmad Rashad went back there after he started with the Seahawks there that off season. And Sam, as I remember that first year, that rookie season for me, When you came to Seattle, you were still working through that knee injury because it took you a little bit of time, as I remember, to kind of get through training camp, get it feeling good. But the thing that I remember most is that opening game against the Cardinals in the Kingdome in 1976. I started that game. Don Clune started that game. You never heard from either of us again after that because Sam caught a couple of touchdowns and Steve caught a couple of touchdowns, and that was that. We were off and running, and we all sort of found our roles. But do I remember that right, Sam, that it was you had to kind of get that knee back in shape before you could really get out there, and then once you did, man, you were there forever.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't as slow as that. It was more just acclimating to something that was totally new at that time. And coming out to Seattle was just so many changes. I had met a woman who became my wife, Kathy, and I was leaving her in Minnesota, which was hard. And all those years of my, being away from my parents as I did as going to college in Montana, then all of a sudden I'm playing in Minnesota in front of my parents and my younger brothers and sisters, and that was quite a great thing for me to happen. Then all of a sudden I'm leaving them, going to Seattle. There was a good news, bad news deal. So it was hard coming out, but yeah, the injury that I had from the previous year was a slight knee, but it did not hamper me as much as just the adjustment of being away again, because it was just hard to go and leave everybody after 4 years in Montana and go out to Minnesota for those years, and all of a sudden got to walk away again. It was kind of hard at that point. So it was hard getting used to that.
Well, you actually melded right into the team. You didn't like him very much, did you, Steve? taking your position.
No, listen, all I had to do, there's a reason why his nickname is Magic.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think we gave him that nickname because we voted on it. But because I don't know that, as good a route runner as Steve Largent was and the Hall of Fame and all that, I don't know that I ever saw anybody run routes the way Sam did. He's so smooth. In fact, he wanted the nickname Silky. I think Silk. We gave him Magic, but I think he wanted Silk. Anyway,
was that one of the final names?
I think it was one of the final names. But Sam, were you always able to run pass routes that way? Did you always feel comfortable? Because you're like me, 6'2", something like that. It's tougher for a taller guy to get to where you can get in and out of your breaks. And I always admired you for that. That golly, how does he do that?
Well, I was lucky enough to have some pretty good guys there with me to kind of, especially Minnesota, because Jim Lash was a receiver at the time. He's like 6'5", and here I am, 6'2", and watching him run routes. And John Gilliam was 5'9", but he was just incredibly, incredibly fast. And so working with those guys that I did was also helpful. But going back further, college coach, a guy named Sonny Holland, who was an offensive lineman, an All-American, realized that I had potential. And he brought a guy named Raymond Berry, who was at Arkansas at the time, to come in and work with me on my route running and a great deal. And we had another guy that was there as another quarterback, a guy named Dennis Erickson, was also around at my freshman year, who was also helping as well. So I had some really good mentors teaching me how to be a receiver and how to run routes and catch balls and so forth. They saw a lot in me that I didn't see in myself, because I assumed when I left high school I was going to be going to the military, because that's what my dad did. He spent almost 40-some years in the military. So, and we all thought we were going to go to the military, but these guys saw a lot, and they're the ones that encouraged me to really spend my time and focus on getting better at these particular things. So it helped, but Jim Lash was a really good role model for me. And he was a guy that literally at 6'5" could just run an amazing route, and he showed me how to do it. So did Jim. So it really helped a great deal.
So think about this. What I remember about Sam coming in was and I think this was something that Jerry always said. Jerry Rome, our coach.
Yep.
And he always said, you need to define your route. And having that word kind of embedded in my brain, when a receiver defines his route either at his break point or right before it, then the quarterback has a better chance of throwing it correctly. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where the receiver can run underneath it, or the accuracy the quarterback might have. And I think Sam really did a great job of defining his route, whether he was coming out of his break on an in route, a curl, an out, a go route, or that, and he's kind of ran that post route that we connected on several times. defining your route. That's how I think of Sam McCullum when he was running routes. And he can kind of blur his legs, too. I mean, for 6'2", he could go, he could get down the field and get on that defender as quick as anybody.
Can you still do that, Sam, with your legs?
Yeah, I probably hurt myself worse. Blur my legs, Jim. I haven't heard that definition before.
Oh, man. Yeah. You know, it's just like, those legs were just going. And, I just thought that was, it was outstanding. Yeah. And then Jerry tried to get, Jerry Rome, our coach, tried to get you onto the field, and we started going 3 wide receivers, which was
Blue
kind of
formation.
Unheard of in the NFL at that particular time. And then with a tight end and you and Steve and Sam, it was purple.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Purple was with the tight end and blue was with just you 3.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how now, I mean, not only is it commonplace, but you almost are always that way. We were most of the time in 2 backs, whether it's an I formation or split backs, and then 2 wide receivers, tight end, or sometimes 3 wide receivers. But we all had a chance. We all had our opportunities out there. Sam, kind of capsulize your time with the Seahawks. What are the memories that you have of all of us, not only as teammates, but your memories of this group of guys that helped build this franchise where it is now?
Well, the one thing that stands out all the time is that we came from all different areas in the country. We came from all different backgrounds, and we melded so amazingly well. We all had a common focus and a common goal was to be successful, but our focus was to be a team. And I think that stood out. And, what I said when I came from Minnesota, Patera wanted to bring the culture with him because Bud Grant had that culture, no water in training camp. It was just a mental thing. You couldn't wear gloves when it was cold outside. It's a mental thing. He had an issue. He didn't need to be on you all day about working out and doing things. You should be a professional and want to do it yourself because it's your job. It's your career. So he really wanted that to come to Seattle. So when I was here, he talked to me a lot about sharing the things in Minnesota that we did. And it was amazing how quickly so many of the guys picked up on it, because it could have been this whole revolt about, I came from Dallas, or I came from Green Bay, or I came from the Jets, whatever. And we don't do it that way. But everybody here really wanted to make this a successful franchise. So everybody came together, and our focus was very common. We had a very common focus on how we're going to do things, how we're going to get it done. And there was a lot of guys that came through that didn't make it or didn't could stand for it. But pretty much everyone bought into this issue of really wanting to have a common focus on a common good. And I think that's the part I remember the most, because it was just such a good thing. And that's why some of the guys, they were from the Ron Howards and the Paul Johns and the, Don Testermans, who died a few years ago, and, Country, and all these guys are still connected today. Autry Beeman's the guy that I talk to Autry, every few weeks. He's a guy that I remember from 1975. So everyone kind of melded, and that was a good thing because we had a common focus and a common goal.
It's pretty amazing. Very much of your offensive line still keeps in touch. We're all kind of connected on an email chain. Guys like Fig Newton and Tommy Lynch and John Yarno and Artie Kuhn
and
Nick Bebout. Sam, you can't find personalities like that all the time. And when you said melded together, that's what I started to think, that, sometimes you have to have a little give and take, but also we just happen to have a group of guys that it seemed to work naturally for so many of those guys. And I think that's one of the reasons, Jim, so many of us have stayed in touch now. Do you realize this, Sam? We've talked about it before. Almost 50 years. It'll be 50 years next season, our first training camp. In 1976. I don't know what happened to you guys, but I think I stayed young.
Have you looked at a year later, Steve?
Steve, you're our inspiration.
What happened to all of us? Yeah, trust me, I do understand that, because my wife and I got married after our first season. That was in 1977. So I do know how long we've been doing this for a long time. Trust me.
Yeah.
Hey, Sam, one thing that I remember too, as you stated, we worked we just came into work. We want to establish our own traditions. And I didn't know that you had secretly talked to Jack Patera about, making sure all this all this culture was going to happen as far as the Vikings and bringing it to Seattle. But what really worked, one of the aspects that really worked was you, Steve, and Steve Raible never complained about getting the ball. Throw me the ball. Come on, I'm open. It was just we came in, we got into the huddle, I called the play, and here we go. And, some games they'd take Steve Largent away. He might catch 2 or 3 balls, and you would catch 9 or 10. And then Raves, did you
couple of times, yes.
Yeah, you caught a couple.
There
was a few. I know.
Jim, you got to be careful of your words, Jim. You got to be careful of your words, Jim.
What do you mean? I was very clear. I just thought you guys did a great job because it really helped me to not have to try to pick somebody out to make sure his feelings weren't getting hurt, that he wasn't catching the ball. And I think that you guys really believed, and part of that might have been the culture that you were trying to instill, Sam, and then the culture Jerry Rome, because I don't think Jerry Rome ever said we have to get the ball to this guy or that guy. To me, as we discussed the next series, he was talking about plays and what the defense was giving us, and we try to more than take it.
Yeah, I think one of the things is we didn't have any prima donnas, and I don't say that some teams have, but some teams do, and and now with the money they make, we were all just I think we all really got along. We were all really good friends. We saw each other outside of the football field as well, and I think that helped. But Sam, we all we worked together, and part of it was we didn't have our own coach. Jerry Rome coached the quarterbacks, was the offensive coordinator, and the receivers coach. So he'd just tell us to go to the other field or go down to the other side of the field, and you guys do your drills. And so I'm watching what Sam does. I'm watching what Steve does. And that's how I learned. I don't know how that affected you, Sam, but it was one of those things that I thought kind of helped.
It was hard. Jim said we didn't really have a chance to complain about not getting the balls. We know who to complain to. That's one point. Because we didn't have a coach. We didn't have a coach to complain. Because Jerry Rome was so worried about the offensive scheme. Him working with Sam Burgoge and everybody else about making sure we had the whole game plan in place. So for so much of us, it was on us. And it was on us to teach ourselves. And I think that's why we met as a receiver group, because we learned each other's positions. I mean, we learned all the positions. What Steve, what I ran, what Steve ran, and what tight ends. We had to learn all the positions because that's how we kept kind of getting ahead of the game in some respect. Because if we just couldn't focus on our one position, had to learn all the positions. And so many times, we switched on the field. Like Steve would come in, we go 3 wides. I play inside, outside, large and play inside. We would be constant moving the entire time. Yeah. So for us, we all had opportunities based on what the defense did to be successful, because we were spending a lot of time working with each other, understand what each other's did. And that helped us be successful, because you're right, we didn't have a coach. I think today, when I watch the sidelines of some of the games today, I'm shocked at how many coaches they have. I mean, there's a receiver coach for one side of the ball, and the other side, there's a tight end, there's a running back, there's a fullback coach, there's a quarterback coach. We had one person doing that entire job, and we were still successful at it. So we were very fortunate. But
I think when the Seahawks first started in '76, I think we had 10 coaches. It might have been 11, but I don't
think it was that many. We had 3 on offense, 3 on defense, and Jack.
Well, didn't we have
Rusty didn't come until like 78 or 79 as special teams.
Yeah. No, Andy McDonald, Sam Bogosian, Jerry Rome. Yeah. They did a ton of work.
Yeah. And right? Andy was the special teams coach for the first 3 years.
Yeah, but we had Howard too, right?
Howard came in after Sam left.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So Sam was the offensive coordinator, and not Sam McCullum. But Sam Bogosian was the offensive coordinator and O-line coach.
Right, and then he went to the Raiders.
Yeah, that's right.
No, actually, he went to Houston, I think, first, then went to the Raiders and finished out his career there. Yeah. So, you also knew exactly, like Sam said, we didn't know who to complain to, but you also there's one voice.
Right.
First of all, there's Jack's voice, but then the next voice down on everything offensively was, as far as we were all concerned, it was Jerry. As far as blocking was concerned, then it became Howard. And that was that was all a good thing, and then Andy with the running backs. Sam, best moment. What's the one moment that stands out to you in our time here?
Wow. I guess you got to figure our first win. We beat Tampa in Tampa, and the very first win that we had was a big win for us. I mean, just getting that very first win. And it was my first time in Florida, to say the least. So I had never been there. So playing at a place where it was hot and humid and really having a first win, it was fun. I remember that just kind of like, wow, the very first win in the franchise history, we beat Tampa Bay. I mean, it was a big win. I mean, plus starting and catching the first touchdown on the Seahawks, from Jimmy and stuff that we caught in the very first game as well. Some memories that will be with me forever. But part of my biggest memories, guys, is the friends that we made. I mean, I tell people all the time, people ask me all the time, are you sad you played too soon? The money's so big. I says, no, I'm not. I had so much fun playing the game when I played it. I couldn't imagine not having done that. I really can't. I mean, it was just so much fun. And these kids today in college with this NIL, I mean, the constant changing of schools, I mean, they're not going to have this long-term friendships and long-term camaraderies like we have, because every year they got to make new friends and start over. Yeah. We didn't do that. We stayed. It was great to have a nucleus of people, like Steve said. We socialized off the field, and when Jim met Joy, I think I saw him the next week after we met Joy, married Joy. I mean, and Dave Brown and Sherman Smith and all the guys, we were always together on and off the field, that we became this little club, and it was just such a comforting place to be amongst these guys all the time. And something I carry with me today, because I tell people, I was a Seahawk at that time, and it was so much fun to be a part of it. It's tough to say anything different.
Yeah. And I was excited that Jerry Rome was my coach, because he knew he had been a quarterback for so many years, outstanding. Mm-hmm. And then he looked at the talent that he had, and he's the one that put Sam over there. He moved you there because of your speed, Steve. And then Largent was on the other side because he was that controlled route runner, but he knew what Steve could do because he had him in college. Right. And what was fun is having Sherman back there, David Sims as the fullback. You said it. We were two back, and he just utilized us all, and we ran some really tremendous stuff to get everybody the ball.
We were talking, folks, those of you listening, before we got started here, about all the new screens, big video screens that the Seahawks have put in down near the indoor facility and down by the locker room. And they are replaying a lot of highlights going back to 1976. And I had a chance to stand and literally watch for like 15 minutes the other day. And how many big plays, not so many to me, obviously, but Sam and Jim and David Sims, since you brought that up.
Great back.
And as I remember, we played a game, Sam, in Miami that was as hot and humid a day as I can ever remember. And David Sims, one handoff into and he had the year before that a great season. He was going to be a star. I mean, he could be a tailback, he could be a fullback, he could catch the ball. He was big, went to Georgia Tech, so he was like me, smart guy. And and one simple dive.
It was, I remember,
that was it. His career ended.
It was a 3rd and 1. We're in the middle of the field. I handed him the bike. I can still remember it.
Yeah.
I just turned. It was 40 dive. He came, and he got the first down and just got tackled.
Yeah.
And he never got up.
Yeah.
He said, I can't feel my legs.
Yeah.
And so we brought the group in, and he had after I think Monday when we had come back, he had this narrowing in his spine, and they gave him the opportunity. Hey, you're risking a lot if you continue to play.
Right.
And he retired, and he was a big part. He was just a rambling fullback that could run the ball. I mean, he could run like Sherman could run.
Yeah. And Sam, we see it seemingly over and over again. You work so hard to get to this position, to make it into the National Football League, and something as innocuous as a handoff inside, and your career is over literally right then. It is, and you've been around now with the NFLPA and for all the years since you've been retired. So you've seen this, and it is such a blow to these young men as it was to David back then, and it just happens. That's the nature of this game.
I think the agents today and the guys as advisors are doing an amazing job of preparing these young kids out there to think about post-football and post-career, because it can end so fast. I'm a player, I'm a trustee for the player benefit, and I see a lot of guys that played 2 or 3 years or 4 years who had planned on playing a lot longer, but unfortunately injury into their careers. And some of the guys just weren't prepared for it, but today they are. And that was one of the hardest things for us, because you saw about David Sims, we talk about Cornell Webster, we think about some other, that literally careers where they were so talented, but their careers ended so fast and just a flash. I mean, it's just really a flash. And it's unfortunate, because that's the nature of the game we play. We see it in soccer. I saw it in basketball. You think about the Lynn Bias days and all those guys. It's just our bodies are our bodies, and we just don't know how well they can handle such stress, day in and day out. And some can and some can't.
Sam, and think about our weight room when we first started. It was about as big as a studio, really, and maybe a little bigger. But I went down there before I went down to our weight room, or I still call it my team. The weight room downstairs that Ivan looks over. He's our strength coach here. And oh my gosh, if you can't become strong and fit and be ready to, with your bod down there, you don't deserve to be around the NFL or anything like that. They've got every modality that you can. If we could come in and work out for free, we'd walk around and they'd be saying, Raves,
look at those
you could still play.
Look at those 70-year-olds. I just, now I'm trying to just lift my medicine bottle is what I'm trying to do. Here's another thing that's different. And I told some of the young guys we've talked on some of these trips, and they, the nutrition. They have a dining room here that's open like almost 24/7, feeding coaches, feeding players. They're all, very focused on their diet. I said, you know what our diet was? I said, every day a rookie had to bring donuts. I said, we ate donuts every morning for 6 years because that's what the rookies had to bring. And Sam, the tradition of that, listen, you were a rookie, I was a rookie. Once there was somebody else, a rookie, bringing donuts, I was all for it.
It wasn't come out of your pocket, and there was no slush fund to take the money. It came directly out of your pocket for sure. Don't forget lunches. We send someone out to go to the delicatessen to get us sandwiches between our meetings and going out on the field. And that was our food, was sending someone to get sandwiches. So that was our day. So.
After my Seahawk time, I went to the Green Bay Packers, and we had to play half of our games in Milwaukee. And we had to bus from Green Bay to Milwaukee. And before you got on the bus, you had to tell the equipment guys whether you wanted a Big Mac and a Filet-O-Fish sandwich, or 2 Filet-O-Fish sandwiches, or 2 Big Macs. That's what we ate on our lunch going to Milwaukee to play an NFL game. And the reason that we're laughing about it, I mean, what's so bad about a Filet-O-Fish sandwich or 2 of them? But what was interesting is that's not what nutrition now is so much smarter. And preparing, guys, you're exactly right. The nutrition is, and then sleep, and then monitoring the power that you're putting, the extension you're putting out. These guys have to walk around these days with a GPS embedded on their shoulder pads at practice, so we know how far you've run and how hard you went during a play. It's amazing.
Back in the old days, I remember Jack could tell how far we'd run and how tough we ran because we'd start falling down because from fatigue, you just ran until you couldn't run anymore. So things have changed a whole lot. Sam, you mentioned it as we're kind of running out of time here, but you mentioned it. You've been working with the Player Fund. Tell us a little bit about what that is, what you do, and how the players are being helped by it. The former players are being helped by it.
Well, it's a really big story, Steve, but it started back, I think, with the 80s, probably the 87 strike, 82 strike a little bit, but 87 strike, where the players were able to gain control of some of their benefits. And I mean their pension benefits, their insurance benefits, their disability benefits, those things. And what has migrated to is what we are today. I'm one of the trustees. There's 3 player trustees and 3 owner trustees. And we manage the players' 401k plans, their defined benefit plans, the Burt Bell plan, which you guys are part of, We manage the disability programs, all the disability programs. We manage the annuity programs, and we manage all their investments. And this is all done because of collective bargaining at no cost to the players. And what we see and what we try to maintain is making sure the players that need help can get help. And there's a lot of ways that happens. And whether it be if a player has come up on some really hard time because of injuries or disabilities or family, and they can reach out and there's ways to help. And so I think there was a player who's my age, a guy named Webster, who was a center for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, yeah. Mike Webster.
And he died in his car on the streets of rural Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And it was a travesty beyond a travesty because he had a lot of money built up in his different accounts for him, like we do in our defined benefit program or disability program. We had money available to us there. His money was there, but he didn't know how to access it. And when that happened, Roger Goodall came in. He was coming in at the time as a new head of the league. And he said, I don't ever want that to happen again. And so there's been a whole bunch of emphasis placed on player programs to help players post that time. And it's really helped out a great deal. And I've seen a lot of players out there and they're helping. And there are guys, unfortunately, that have things that are not related to football because, you know, we've got ALS out there. We got guys with Parkinson's, we got guys with dementia and Alzheimer's. We got guys with a number of other things because they're human. We're human. We're part of the normal population. But those are things that are not defined in any kind of a benefit that as a result of playing NFL football. I mean, maybe dementias, but for the most part, these other ones are not. But the players and the owners have come to this understanding is that you're a former player. You know, you're a legend. As the expression goes, once a legend, always a legend. And they want to make sure that all players have the benefit to be able to live a life post-football that's worthy of them. And so we really work greatly with the owners. The lady Katie Blackburn owns the Cincinnati Bengals, and a guy named Spanos John that owns with the San Diego Chargers, and the people in the Jets. We work closely, and they really want to find a way to make sure that all players that play the game have a way to live a life that's really up to their standards. And I think that's the best part of what we do.
I just say thank you, Sam, for being available and also caring, because you have to care about what you're doing and you have to care about others. You know, you're other oriented with what you do in those circumstances. So I know I've seen players get help, and and this is going to be perpetuated throughout the NFL and throughout the years. I tip my hat to you and the group that's managing all of that and cares about it, because you have to care. Yeah. You can't just work the numbers. You got to care as well. Yeah. So, a way to go. I'm glad.
One of the guys that taught us about caring is a guy named Richard Harris. If you remember that name, guys.
I know Richard. Sure. Yeah.
Richard died a few years ago, but Rich was one of the guys we used to call him Daddy Rich or Poppy Rich. And he would always come up and ask you, put his hand on his shoulder and really look you in the eye and say, how you doing? Really, how are you doing? Yeah. Tell me, what do you need? What can you do? He was always that guy that reached out and looked at other players. I think Ken Hutcherson was another guy that did some of the same exact things, of talking to guys and reaching out well beyond just how well did you play on Sunday, with how are you doing? Really, how are you doing? Talk to me. Tell me how you're doing. And hey, they really cared. And that kind of stuck with me, because I was able to help guys when I played that kind of carried over, with things. And so they kind of showed you that you can care a lot about somebody in a situation, and they're not your brothers and sisters, but they become your brothers and sisters because of what you do. And you share the same goal of being successful in this world. And it helped me a lot to really want to get involved in helping other players.
Yep. How did you ever think about coaching besides the help that you've given for other players? When you were done playing, did you ever try to get on a staff and actually do, the influence you had from other coaches and other players in your receiver skill? Did you ever think about coaching as a career?
I never did. I think in the end, my entire life had been spent, my development life, in the locker room, because having been a military brat, we moved all over the country. And, when I was in middle school, we moved twice. In high school, we moved twice. So it was always moving. So when it came time, I moved from the Vikings to the Seahawks, back to the Vikings, and stayed in Seattle. So it was a constant move. So by the time I was done, as Kathy will tell you, my wife will tell you, I didn't want to go anywhere. I really didn't want to get into this transition. And a very close friend of mine, a guy named try to talk me again to become the coach. And I said, I want nothing to do with it. I really don't. I really want to find a situation where I don't have to move and change. I want to put down roots, and I want to grow my family and grow my community in a place that I want to be. And Seattle was really it. So I really never got into it because I knew that coaching involves movement and constant movement and constant change. And I just didn't want to go through that anymore. I really didn't.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting across from a guy who did that and went off and coached all over the place. And now he's back here in the great Northwest with all of us. And we're still talking Seahawks football. One final quick story here. And that is, and Sam, again, great football player. Amazing work that you do to help former players today. What a lot of people probably didn't know is that you were a very successful businessman here in the Northwest, owned your own businesses, and so you've done that as well. When people ask me what are the things that you remember most about your playing days, aside from the collapsed lung, and I tell them, you know what, those guys who were closest to me then, and this is almost 50 years ago, it's the Jims, it's the Sams, it's Steve, it's Sam Adkins. It's the guys we played with and their spouses. Mm-hmm. I mean, Sharon and I can call on Jim and Joy or Kathy, you and Kathy and Sam and Steve and Terry. I mean, it's like you've never missed a beat. And those are the things that are, to me, when I walk away from this game finally, and they're probably going to have to drag me kicking and screaming out of the booth, but is just the fact that the absolute respect that not only I have for you guys, but that we have for our brides and for our families. Mm-hmm. And we've been at this now, all of us, almost 50 years. And it's just a great, I think it says something about the character of the people that were here early on. And I'm just honored to be a little part of all of that. And Sam, I don't know if you have any final words, but I just want to say thank you on behalf of all of us who are not only been your teammate and your friend, but who watched you play and who admired you from afar all those years. So thanks, brother.
Hey, guys, I appreciate it. And Steve, like you said, I mean, not just us, but our spouses, we go back a very long ways. And the respect is there. And I can say I picture you guys. I can remember you guys without having the name on the helmets. I still remember this day. How long did we live the first couple of years with names on our helmet?
Yeah, that's right.
That's exactly right.
I don't need the helmet. I don't need the name on the helmets anymore to know my friends, and it's great that I was able to talk with you guys. It's always great to see you guys as I do. And Jimmy, one of these you're gonna sleep in and come play with me at 8 to plan, but I just don't play at 6:45 anymore. I stay way too early, 6:45.
All right, well, we'll get out there together. We'll get out there together, Sam. And I would imagine that Kathy, Sam's wife, had no idea that Sam was going to be involved with football as long as he has, and now the NFLPA, and then the other businesses. Maybe she would have said, yeah, he's a businessman, but to be involved with football, I know Joy goes, oh, my gosh. Yeah. We've been married 45 years, and she had no idea. And I probably had no idea either that we were going to be involved with football that long. But they haven't just come along for the ride. They have been very important to our families and to people surrounding our, anybody that comes into our family's life. They'll see Joyce far more, important and really, she's the backbone of what we're doing.
Well, and as Yoda told me many years ago, I outkicked my coverage when I married Sharon. So I have lived by that all along. Sam, it's always great, my friend. We will see you along the way. And I thank all of you for listening today. Z, it's great to get back with you. And we'll have another one of these here in a few weeks. All right. Again, thanks, everybody. Go Hawks. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, guys. Thank you. Take care.